Namo Amitabha Buddha. Dear friends, I'm grateful you're here tonight. Have you ever noticed how a single sentence, an email, a comment at work, a remark from someone you love can suddenly steal your peace for the entire day? You try to let it go, yet your chest tightens. Your mind replays it, and sleep feels far away. Many of us in America carry full schedules, quiet worries, and the feeling that we must stay strong even when our hearts are tired. Tonight, I'd like to share a gentle Buddhist insight that has helped many people loosen that grip. It's not about suppressing feelings or pretending everything is fine. It's about understanding what truly takes our peace and how to protect it with wisdom and compassion. If you've been feeling easily triggered or quietly exhausted, stay with me. There is a softer way forward. There is a softer way forward. And that softer way begins with a truth. Many kind, responsible people have never been told clearly enough. You are not weak. You are exhausted. Exhausted from holding yourself together for too long. Exhausted from being the reliable one. Exhausted from staying calm on the outside while something inside keeps tightening day after day. In America, life moves fast. Morning begins before the sky has fully decided to be light. Coffee cools on the counter while keys are searched for. Freeways fill with red brake lights, and your body already feels late even when you are on time. At work you smile, you focus, you handle things. At home you cook, you clean, you check on everyone else. And somewhere in between, a comment lands wrong. It might be a short email, a tone of voice, a passing remark that stays with you longer than it should. Later, when the house finally grows quiet, when the dishwasher hums softly, and the phone rests face down on the table, your mind does not follow the room into stillness. The moment replays, not loudly, just enough to keep you awake. Your chest feels tight. Your jaw clenches without permission. Sleep feels close yet just out of reach. And then the judgment appears. Why am I like this? Why can't I just let things go? Why does one small thing affect me so deeply? If those questions feel familiar, please hear this gently. Buddhist wisdom does not look at you and see weakness. It sees a heart that has been carrying more than it was meant to carry alone. There is a woman named Linda who once shared something quietly after a short evening service at a small temple in Northern California. The hall was simple. Wooden floors, a faint scent of incense lingering in the air, a bell resting on a cushion near the altar still warm from being struck. Linda stood near the back, hands folded, eyes lowered. "I don't want to be so reactive," she said softly. "I don't recognize myself sometimes." The nun listening to her did not offer a lecture. She did not correct Linda or tell her to try harder. She simply asked, "Have you been resting?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Linda's shoulders dropped. Her breath broke. Tears came before words, because no one had asked her that in a long time. Everyone had asked what she was doing, how she was managing, whether she could handle one more thing. No one had asked if her heart had space left. This is something many good people experience, especially those who care deeply, especially those who were taught to be strong, to be grateful to keep going. When the mind and body are tired, the space between stimulus and reaction becomes very small. A spark does not need much fuel when the ground is already dry. Irritation rises faster. Words feel sharper. Silence feels heavy instead of peaceful. In Buddhism, this is not a moral failure. It is a condition. A mind that is depleted cannot respond with clarity. A heart that is overwhelmed cannot remain soft. The Buddha taught that suffering has causes, and often those causes are not dramatic. They are quiet, accumulated, hidden under responsibility and good intentions. Too many days without true rest. Too many moments of swallowing feelings instead of digesting them. Too many "I'll take care of myself later." When we live this way, the mind begins to protect itself. Sometimes protection looks like snapping back. Sometimes it looks like withdrawing. Sometimes it looks like replaying conversations late into the night as if the mind is trying to regain control over something it felt powerless to change. This does not make you unkind. It means your nervous system is tired. There is an important shift that Buddhist practice invites us to make here. Before any deep teaching, before any method, it invites honesty, not the harsh kind that criticizes, but the gentle kind that names what is true. I am tired. I am stretched thin. I am doing my best with the energy I have. When you allow that truth to surface, something begins to soften. The inner war pauses. You stop fighting yourself for feeling the way you feel. This is where compassion begins. You may notice that on days when you sleep well, eat lightly, and take even a few quiet minutes to breathe, the same situations do not shake you as much. The same words land differently. They still register, but they do not hook as deeply. There is a small gap, a moment of choice. That gap is not willpower, it is balance. In Buddhist understanding, reactivity increases when balance is lost, when giving outweighs receiving, when effort outweighs nourishment, when responsibility outweighs rest. Many people grew up believing that patience means enduring everything silently, that being good means never showing strain, that love means self-erasure. But the Buddha did not teach exhaustion as a virtue. He taught the middle way, a way that honors care for others without abandoning care for oneself, a way that understands limits without guilt. You may notice this especially in families, parents caring for children, adult children caring for aging parents, immigrants carrying not only their own lives, but the hopes of those who came before them. The desire to honor, to repay, to hold the family together is strong, beautiful, and heavy. If that weight is never set down, even briefly, it presses inward. Eventually, it looks for an exit. Sometimes that exit is anger. Sometimes it is numbness. Sometimes it is tears that arrive without warning. Buddhist practice does not shame these responses. It listens to them. There are evenings when standing before a small altar, at home a candle, flickering a simple image of the Buddha, a stick of incense curling upward. The body exhales without being told. The shoulders lower, the breath lengthens, not because problems disappear, but because for a moment you are not being asked to carry them. In that quiet, something becomes clear. You do not need to be stronger. You need to be gentler with your strength. This is not about indulging or avoiding responsibility. It is about recognizing that the mind needs periods of non-demand. The heart needs places where it does not have to perform. When that need is ignored, the mind reacts faster than wisdom can arrive. When that need is met, even partially, wisdom has room to speak. In Buddhist terms, this is the beginning of mindfulness, not as a technique, but as a relationship with yourself. A relationship that notices fatigue without judgment, that responds to strain with care instead of criticism. You may find that just acknowledging your exhaustion changes how you meet the world. You pause before replying. You breathe before explaining. You let silence be a resting place rather than a punishment. If, as you listen, you feel a heaviness loosening slightly, or a quiet emotion rising, let it be there. This is not a sign of fragility. It is a sign of life. From this place, where effort softens and honesty opens, deeper understanding can unfold. Not all at once, not forcefully, but naturally. In the next step of this reflection, we will look more closely at what actually happens inside the mind when we feel triggered. Not to analyze ourselves harshly, but to see clearly, and through seeing begin to release the tight grip that keeps us tired and reactive. For now, simply remember this. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are a caring person who has been running on empty. And even that realization is already the first moment of rest. And from that first moment of rest, something important becomes visible. Not the world outside, but the quiet mechanics inside the mind. Because what we often call a trigger is not a single event. It is a sequence, a chain moving so quickly that most of us never see its links. The Buddha described this chain with 3 simple words: feeling, craving, clinging. In traditional language, Vedana Tanha Upadana. Tonight, we'll keep it simple. We'll stay close to lived experience. Imagine this. You are driving home as the sky begins to dim. Brake lights stretch endlessly ahead. Your phone buzzes. A short message appears. Just a few words. Nothing dramatic. And yet your breath tightens. Your shoulders lift. Something sharp moves through your chest. That first moment before the story, before the anger that is feeling. Not emotion yet, just sensation, a tightening, a heat, a sinking weight behind the ribs. The Buddha taught that feeling arises naturally whenever the senses meet the world. Sound touches the ear. Words touch the mind. There is no failure here. Feeling is simply the body registering contact. A bell rings in a temple and the sound spreads through the hall. It is heard. It vibrates. It fades. Feeling is like that bell. It arrives. It has a tone. It passes. But most suffering does not come from feeling. It comes from what happens next. Almost immediately, the mind leans forward. I don't like this. This shouldn't be happening. I want it to stop. This leaning is craving, not craving in the dramatic sense of wanting luxury or success, but the subtle urge to push away discomfort or pull toward reassurance. You want respect. You want understanding. You want to be seen as competent, kind, fair. Craving is the moment the mind decides this feeling must change. And then, almost without permission, craving tightens into clinging. Clinging is when the mind grabs hold of an idea about who you are and what must be protected. I need to defend myself. I need to explain. I need to be right. I need them to see me differently. At this point, the body is no longer just feeling. It is bracing. The jaw locks. The breath shortens. The chest hardens like a door being bolted shut. This is where most people believe the trigger is. But the Buddha would say this is simply the last link in a chain that began much earlier. A small, honest example. A man named Daniel once described a moment during a family gathering. The room was warm. Plates clinked softly as dinner ended. Someone made an offhand comment about his career. Not cruel, not loud, just careless. Daniel smiled politely. Inside, something tightened. That tightening was feeling. Then came the thought, they don't respect me. That was craving for recognition, for dignity. Then came the urge to correct, to explain, to list accomplishments. That was clinging to an identity that needed to be upheld. By the time Daniel spoke, his voice was sharper than he intended. The room shifted. A quiet tension settled over the table like dust. Later that night, alone in the kitchen, he replayed the moment again and again. Not because he enjoyed it, but because the mind, once it clings, does not easily let go. This is how suffering multiplies. The Buddha did not teach this chain to make us feel trapped. He taught it to show us where freedom actually lives. Freedom does not begin at clinging. By then, the rope is already tight. Freedom begins at feeling, at the very first tightening, at the first flicker of heat, at the moment when the bell has just been struck. This is why mindfulness is not about suppressing emotion or forcing calm. It is about seeing clearly early. When you learn to notice feelings feeling without immediately labeling it as a problem, the chain weakens. You might notice the chest tightening and think, this is unpleasant. Not, this must stop. Just, this is here. That small shift changes everything. Because when craving is not fed, clinging has nothing to hold on to. The Buddha compared clinging to grasping a hot coal. The pain does not come from the coal existing. It comes from refusing to release it. Most people never see the moment where release is possible, not because they are careless, but because no one taught them where to look. In many Buddhist communities in the United States, teachers gently remind students, you are not asked to fix your mind, only to know it. Knowing begins with slowing down enough to feel the first signal. It may be a shallow breath, a sudden impatience, a quiet fear of being dismissed. These are not enemies. They are messages. When feeling is met with awareness, craving does not harden. When craving does not harden, clinging loosens. And when clinging loosens, reaction loses its grip. This is not philosophy. It is something you can test. The next time a comment lands awkwardly, see if you can pause just long enough to feel the body's response before the story begins. You may notice warmth in the face, a flutter in the stomach, a pull toward explanation. Stay with the sensation for one breath. You are not agreeing with it. You are not obeying it. You are simply allowing it to be known. That breath is a doorway. In that doorway, you are no longer trapped inside the chain. You are standing beside it, watching. This is why the Buddha emphasized awareness so strongly. Not because awareness is special, but because it interrupts automatic momentum. Clinging depends on speed. Awareness introduces space. Many practitioners describe this moment as subtle but profound, like hearing a temple bell echo across a courtyard. The sound touches the ear, then dissolves into silence. Feeling, when allowed, does the same. It rises, it vibrates, it fades. The problem has never been feeling itself. The problem has been the belief that we must immediately act on it. When you see the chain clearly, feeling craving, clinging, you stop blaming yourself for being triggered. You stop blaming others for causing it. You begin to work skillfully with the process itself. And that is where real peace begins. Not by controlling the world, but by understanding the mind. In the next movement of this reflection, we will explore how silence and devotional practice, especially mindful recitation, can help soften craving before it hardens into clinging and protect the heart without closing it. For now, simply remember this: nothing is wrong with you. You are not failing at peace. You are learning to see the links that were always there and discovering that they do not have to bind you anymore. And when the chain loosens, something surprising becomes possible. Not a clever reply, not a stronger argument, but silence, clear, steady, and awake. In our culture, silence is often misunderstood. It can look like giving up, like letting someone win, like swallowing words that deserve to be spoken. Many of us were taught that if we don't respond, we lose ground. If we don't explain ourselves, we are dismissed. If we don't defend, we are erased. Yet, in Buddhist understanding, there is a kind of silence that does not come from fear or avoidance. It comes from wisdom. Imagine a pond at dawn. The surface is smooth. A leaf falls. Ripples spread gently, then disappear. The water does not argue with the leaf. It does not chase the ripple. It simply returns to stillness. That is the silence we are speaking of. There is a man named Michael who once described an experience at work. A meeting room, fluorescent lights, coffee cups cooling on the table. A colleague questioned his decision in front of others. The tone was sharp enough to sting. Michael felt the familiar heat rise. His mouth opened slightly. A response formed, quick, precise, ready to strike back. Then something else happened. He noticed his breath. Short, high, urgent. He felt the craving to be seen as competent. He felt the clinging to an image of himself as capable and respected. And instead of feeding that fire, he did something unexpected. He closed his mouth, not with resentment, not with collapse, but with awareness. The room went quiet for a moment. The colleague continued speaking, a little louder now, a little less steady. Michael stayed still. His hands rested flat on the table. His shoulders softened. He listened without absorbing. Later, a co-worker pulled him aside and said, "I don't know how you stayed so calm. That was impressive." Michael didn't feel victorious. He felt light. This is an important distinction. Silence in Buddhist practice is not about suppressing truth. It is about choosing when and how truth is spoken. It is about refusing to let anger choose for you. The Buddha taught that hatred is never ended by hatred. Only by non-hatred does it end. This is not a poetic idea. It is practical. Anger feeds on response. Conflict feeds on participation. When no fuel is added, fire burns itself out. In many Asian Buddhist traditions, this is described as keeping merit, protecting one's inner wealth. Every word spoken in anger spends that wealth quickly. Every moment of mindful restraint preserves it. In American Buddhist communities, teachers often explain this in very simple terms. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Silence becomes a form of boundary, not a wall. A boundary. There is a difference. A wall is built from fear. A boundary is held by clarity. When you remain silent from clarity, your body tells the truth. The jaw is not clenched. The eyes are not hard. The breath is slow and deep. Your presence communicates more than words ever could. This is why silence can feel unsettling to others. They are used to reaction. They are prepared for resistance. When none comes, the dynamic changes. But here is where Buddhist teaching goes deeper. Silence is not only about what you say outwardly. It is also about what you stop saying inwardly. Many people remain quiet on the outside while the inside rages. Thoughts replay. Arguments continue silently. Judgments sharpen in the dark. That kind of silence is exhausting. True silence begins in the mind. It begins when you notice the urge to respond and do not follow it. When you feel the pull to justify and let it pass. When you hear the inner voice rehearsing speeches and gently return to the breath. Some practitioners support this inner silence with devotional practice, a simple recitation, a familiar phrase, a steady rhythm that anchors the mind. In many homes, this might be the quiet repetition of a Buddha's name, not as superstition, but as a way to gather the mind back to one place. Sound replaces scattered thought. Breath replaces tension. Awareness replaces impulse. When the mind is held in this way, silence no longer feels empty. It feels supported. There is a woman named Grace who keeps a small altar in her apartment. Nothing elaborate. A candle, a simple image, a bowl of water that catches the light in the evening. After difficult conversations, she stands there for a few minutes. She does not analyze. She does not rehearse. She recites softly, letting the sound settle into her chest. She once said, "It's like putting my heart down somewhere safe." That is silence as refuge. In Buddhist ethics, speech is considered powerful. Words can heal or harm, connect or divide. Because of this, restraint is not seen as weakness. It is seen as skill. The Buddha spoke of right speech, not as silence all the time, but as speech that is timely, truthful, gentle, and useful. Silence, then, is what we choose until those conditions are met. If words will only inflame, silence protects merit. If words will only satisfy ego, silence preserves peace. If words are needed to set a boundary, they can be spoken later from steadiness, not heat. This understanding is especially important in families. When emotions are close and history is long, reactions travel fast. Silence can feel risky, like distance, like rejection. But when silence is paired with warmth, soft eyes, relaxed posture, patient listening, it communicates care without surrendering inner balance. It says, "I am here, and I am not going to harm either of us." This is not passive, it is courageous, because silence requires trust. Trust that you do not need to prove yourself in every moment. Trust that your worth is not decided by the loudest voice in the room. Trust that peace is a form of strength. As this kind of silence becomes familiar, something changes inside. The body learns that it does not need to brace so quickly. The mind learns that it can wait. The heart learns that it can remain open without being unprotected. This is how keeping merit feels, not like accumulation, but like conservation. Like not leaking energy through unnecessary battles. And slowly, quietly, life responds. Conversations soften, sleep deepens. The space around you feels less charged, not because others changed, but because you did not feed what once burned you. In the next step of this reflection, we will turn this understanding into a simple, repeatable practice, something you can use in the exact moment when the urge to react is strongest. For now, let this land gently silence chosen with awareness is not losing. It is choosing peace over noise, and that choice protects something precious within you. Something no argument is worth giving away. And from that quiet strength of silence, a question naturally arises. What do you do in the exact moment when the urge to react is already burning. Not later. Not after you've calmed down, but right there, when the words are on your tongue, when the body is tight, when everything in you wants to strike back. This is where a simple ritual becomes a refuge, not a ceremony that requires incense or cushions, not something reserved for temples or perfect conditions, but a 3-minute practice you can carry into a kitchen, a car, a hallway, a crowded office, or the quiet edge of your bed at night. 3 minutes, that's all. Not to fix the situation, but to save your heart. Imagine this moment. Someone has just said something that stings. The room feels smaller. The air feels heavier. Your shoulders lift without asking. Your breath shortens quick and shallow, like it's bracing for impact. Before the mind can form a sentence, before the story takes over, you pause. Not dramatically, just enough. Minute 1. The breath finds the body. Let your feet feel the ground. Not forcefully, just notice the pressure where your shoes meet the floor. Your hands may be clenched. Let them rest open. Inhale slowly through the nose. Feel the breath move down into the chest, then the belly. Exhale gently through the mouth as if fogging a mirror. Do this again. The shoulders soften a fraction. The jaw loosens slightly. The eyes stop searching for the next move. This first minute is not about calm. It is about arriving. In Buddhist teaching, the P is the doorway back to the present moment. When the body settles, the mind follows slowly but faithfully. You are not suppressing the reaction. You are giving it space to breathe. Minute 2. A sound to gather the mind. Now, bring in a simple phrase. Not as a plea, not as a demand, as an anchor. Many people quietly repeat a short recitation, a Buddha's name, a phrase of compassion, or a word that feels sacred and steady. The exact words matter less than the rhythm. Let the sound move with the breath. Inhale. Recite softly in the mind. Exhale. Let the sound fade. The repetition gathers the scattered thoughts, the way a shepherd gently gathers sheep at dusk. One by one, they stop running. You may still feel the heat in the chest. That's okay. You are not trying to erase it. You are placing something steadier beside it. In American Buddhist communities, teachers often explain this as giving the mind something wholesome to hold, so it doesn't grip the sharp edge of anger. Sound becomes shelter. Breath becomes ground. Minute 3. The question that loosens the grip. Now, gently ask yourself one question. Not to analyze, not to judge, just to see. What am I holding on to right now? You might notice an image of yourself that wants to be protected. You might notice a need to be understood. You might notice fear of being dismissed, disrespected, forgotten. Let the answer arise quietly. You don't need to push it away. You don't need to agree with it. Just see it. This is where something subtle happens. When clinging is seen clearly, it loosens on its own. The chest expands a little. The breath deepens. The urgency softens. You realize that what you were protecting was not your safety, but an idea, an identity, a momentary sense of control, and seeing that is enough. The 3 minutes pass without fanfare. No fireworks, no sudden enlightenment. But something important has changed. Your body is no longer braced for battle. Your mind is no longer racing ahead. Your heart is no longer cornered. There is room now. Room to remain silent. Room to speak gently. Room to walk away without carrying the weight with you. A woman named Sarah once described using this practice in her car after a difficult phone call with a family member. She sat in the driveway with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, eyes closed. When she stepped out of the car, her face looked different. The tightness around her mouth had eased. Her gaze was steady, not distant present. I didn't fix anything, she said later, but I didn't add to it, and that felt like a gift. This is the heart of the practice. You are not trying to win the moment. You are choosing not to lose yourself. In Buddhist understanding, this is how karma shifts, not through dramatic gestures, but through small interruptions of old patterns. Each time you pause instead of reacting, a new pathway is laid. Each time you choose awareness over impulse, merit is quietly preserved. Each time you refuse to add fuel, the fire learns how to die down on its own. 3 minutes may not change another person, but it changes the direction of your mind. And over time, that changes everything. This ritual is not something to perform perfectly. Some days you will remember it halfway through an argument. Some days only after. That's okay. Practice is not about success. It is about returning. Returning to the breath. Returning to sound. Returning to seeing clearly. If tonight or tomorrow you feel that familiar surge rising again, remember this. You do not need to fight the urge. You do not need to obey it. You only need 3 minutes to come home to yourself. And in that small, quiet return, peace begins to grow steady, patient, and strong enough to meet whatever comes next. And when that small, steady practice begins to take root, something unexpected happens. The world does not suddenly become kinder. People do not magically say the right things. Situations do not line up the way we wish they would. And yet, life feels lighter because a quiet understanding starts to settle in. You don't need to fix anyone else. You only need to keep this mind. For many of us, the deepest exhaustion has never come from events themselves. It has come from the constant effort to manage other people's reactions, moods, misunderstandings, and expectations. We explain ourselves again and again. We rehearse conversations in our heads. We imagine what we should have said, what we will say next time, how we can finally make them understand. The mind becomes a workshop that never closes. In Buddhist teaching, this urge is not labeled as wrong. It is understood. It comes from care, from wanting harmony, from wanting to be seen accurately and treated fairly. But when this urge turns into a habit, it quietly drains our peace. There is a man named Thomas who shared a moment like this during a small meditation group in Seattle. He spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. I realized I was living my whole life trying to edit other people's perceptions of me, he said. And I was exhausted. He described how even after calm conversations, his mind stayed alert, scanning for signs of approval or rejection. His body never fully rested. His shoulders stayed tight even on quiet evenings. What changed was not a dramatic confrontation. It was a subtle shift inward. He stopped trying to correct every misunderstanding. At first, it felt uncomfortable, like leaving a sentence unfinished, like walking away with something unresolved. But over time, something else emerged. Space. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not because things change, but because we insist that they must change in a particular way. This applies not only to events, but to people. We suffer when we believe they should know better. They should see my intention. They should behave differently so I can be at peace. But peace that depends on others' behavior is fragile by nature. The Buddha did not ask us to become passive or indifferent. He asked us to see clearly what is within our control and what is not. You cannot control another person's tone. You cannot control their history, their fears, their conditioning. You cannot control how your words land in their heart. What you can cultivate is the state of your own mind as you meet them. This is where Buddhist practice becomes deeply practical. When the mind is steady, you respond instead of react. When the mind is clear, you speak when it is useful and remain silent when it is not. When the mind is rooted, you can set boundaries without hostility. There is a quiet confidence that grows from this, not arrogance, not withdrawal, a grounded presence that does not need constant confirmation. You may notice it in small ways. You stop replaying conversations at night. You sleep more deeply. Your words become fewer, but more precise. You listen without preparing a defense. You walk away without carrying the residue. This is not because you stopped caring. It is because you stopped clinging. In Buddhist language, clinging to outcomes is what binds us to suffering. When we release that grip, even slightly, energy returns. The mind no longer leaks itself into every interaction. Many people fear that if they stop trying to fix others, relationships will fall apart. But often, the opposite happens. When you are no longer pushing for a certain response, tension softens. Others feel less controlled, less cornered. Conversations become simpler, and if a relationship does not improve, you are still free, because your peace is no longer negotiated moment by moment. A woman named Elaine once shared how this understanding changed her relationship with her adult son. She had spent years worrying, advising, correcting out of love. Every phone call left her drained. One evening, after a short period of quiet reflection, she noticed something in herself. Her face in the mirror looked softer. Her breath was slower. The urgency was gone. The next time her son spoke, she listened without interrupting. She didn't rush to fix. She didn't rehearse advice. When the call ended, she felt calm. He didn't change, she said later. But I did, and that changed everything. This is the kind of transformation Buddhism points toward. Not control, not victory, freedom. Freedom from the belief that peace must be earned by managing others. Freedom from the habit of carrying what does not belong to you. In many Buddhist communities across the United States, teachers emphasize this again and again. Your practice is not about making life perfect. It is about making the mind stable enough to meet life honestly. Keeping this mind does not mean avoiding difficult conversations. It means approaching them without the need to win, without the need to be right, without the need to be seen a certain way. It means trusting that clarity will guide speech when speech is needed, and trusting silence when it is not. There is a quiet dignity in this trust. You may notice it in your posture. The shoulders relax. The spine lengthens. The eyes meet others without strain. You are present, but not entangled. This is how merit quietly accumulates, not through dramatic acts, but through restraint, awareness, and kindness toward yourself. Each time you choose not to correct, not to argue, not to defend an image, you save energy. That energy returns as patience, as warmth, as a sense of inner sufficiency. And when challenges come, and they will, you meet them differently. You don't brace, you don't collapse, you stand, not rigid, rooted. In Buddhist imagery, this is often compared to a lotus. Its stem moves with the water, but its roots are anchored deep below the surface. Storms may pass above, but the foundation remains undisturbed. Keeping this mind is not a one-time decision. It is a practice. Some days you will forget. Some days you will react before you remember. That is part of being human. The practice is not perfection. It is return. Return to the breath. Return to awareness. Return to the understanding that your peace does not require anyone else to be different. As this understanding deepens, life simplifies. You speak less, but mean more. You listen more, but carry less. You stop trying to shape the world into something manageable, and instead shape your own response to it. And in that shift, something beautiful happens. You begin to live from a place of quiet confidence, not because you control life, but because you trust yourself within it. This is what the Buddha pointed to when he spoke of freedom. Not escape from the world, but freedom within it. Holding this mind again and again is enough. Enough to soften suffering. Enough to protect peace. Enough to let life unfold without losing yourself along the way. And when the mind learns how to stay, something tender becomes possible. Not just calm in the moment, but peace that remains. In Buddhist practice, this is where dedication comes in, not as a ritual performed out of habit, but as an act of care. A way of saying to the heart, "What I've touched here matters. I don't want it to slip away." Imagine the end of a long day. The light outside has softened. A single lamp glows in the corner of the room. The air feels quieter, as if it has finally decided to rest. You sit or stand without rush. Your shoulders are no longer lifted toward your ears. Your breath moves more freely through the chest. This is a fragile moment. Not because it is weak, but because it is new. Without intention, peace can fade the way warmth fades when a door is left open. We return to old habits, old reactions, old ways of bracing. Dedication is the gentle closing of that door. In many Buddhist homes, this is done with a few simple words, spoken softly, sometimes aloud, sometimes only in the heart. The purpose is not to impress the universe. It is to anchor the mind in what has just been cultivated. You may notice the effect immediately. The face looks softer in the mirror. The eyes no longer dart. The breath settles low, steady, unforced. Dedication works because the mind remembers what it names. There is a woman named Margaret who keeps this practice very simple. At the end of her evening reflection, she places her hand over her heart and pauses, just long enough to feel its rhythm. Then she silently offers the calm she has touched, not away from herself, but outward, to my family, to those who struggle, to the people I found difficult today. She once said, "When I do that, the peace feels bigger than me, and somehow it stays." This is not imagination, it is training. The Buddha taught that the mind moves in the direction of intention. When intention is kind and steady, the mind follows like water, finding its way downhill. Dedication turns personal calm into shared benefit, not by force, but by orientation. In traditional language, this is sometimes called transferring merit. But stripped of ceremony, what it truly means is this: you are choosing not to keep peace locked inside fear. You are letting it circulate. When peace circulates, it strengthens. You might dedicate this moment to someone you love, an aging parent, a child finding their way, a friend who carries more than they say. As you hold them in mind, notice how your own chest opens slightly. Compassion widens the space. Peace needs to breathe. You might also dedicate it to someone who challenged you today, someone whose words or actions stirred you. Not to excuse harm, not to deny boundaries, but to release the grip of resentment that keeps you tied to the moment. This does not mean reconciliation, it means release. In American Buddhist communities, teachers often explain this gently. You're not giving them anything. You're giving yourself freedom. As dedication continues, you may notice memories surface. Not sharply, softly. Images of faces, places, moments that once held tension. Let them pass like clouds. You are not revisiting the past. You are changing your relationship to it. The Buddha spoke of wholesome intention as nourishment. Just as the body needs food, to heal the mind needs intention to stabilize. Without it, even the most insightful moments can evaporate. This is why dedication is not an ending. It is a bridge from insight to daily life. When you stand up from this moment, you will still face conversations, responsibilities, and uncertainty. The world does not pause for practice, but something subtle travels with you. A steadier gaze, a softer response, a pause where there used to be reflex. Dedication is what allows that shift to stay close. Some people like to visualize this moment as light, others as warmth, others as still water settling after being stirred. There is no correct image. What matters is sincerity. If images feel forced, simply rest with the feeling of goodwill. It is enough. There is a quiet humility in dedication. It acknowledges that peace is not owned. It is borrowed through practice, then offered forward so it can continue to move. This is deeply aligned with the Buddha's teaching on non-attachment. Even calm is not something to cling to. It is something to share. When peace is shared, it becomes resilient. When it is hoarded, it becomes anxious. As you offer this moment outward, notice how the body responds. The breath lengthens again. The muscles soften further. The nervous system recognizes safety. This is not accidental. Modern research speaks of co-regulation, but the Buddha taught this long ago in simpler terms. Minds affect minds. When yours steadies, it quietly steadies others. Dedication makes that effect intentional. You may find that after dedicating, sleep comes more easily, or that the next conversation feels less charged, or that you remember to pause sooner than you used to. These are signs that peace has found a place to rest, not because life has become easier, but because the heart has learned where to stand. As this dedication settles, let it be simple. Let it be honest. Let it be yours. You are not performing for anyone. You are tending something precious. And as you move forward, remember this: peace does not remain because you hold it tightly. It remains because you care for it wisely. By dedicating it again and again, you teach the mind that calm is not an accident. It is a path that continues step by step, breath by breath, into the living moments still waiting for you. And as that dedication settles, a quiet certainty begins to form. Not excitement, not force, just a steady knowing. You don't have to react anymore. You have a path. It may not look dramatic from the outside. No one hands you a certificate. No one applauds the moment you pause instead of snapping back. But inside, something has shifted. The shoulders no longer jump as quickly. The breath no longer rushes to the surface. The space between what happens and what you do has widened just enough. And in that space, choice lives. You may notice it the next time a familiar situation appears. The tone that once triggered you. The comment that used to hook your attention for hours. The silence that once felt unbearable. This time, something is different. Your body recognizes the moment sooner. Your breath finds its way down before your mind runs ahead. Your face softens instead of tightening. You might even feel a faint smile touch the corners of your mouth. Not because the situation is pleasant, but because you see it clearly now. You see the feeling arise. You see the craving to change it. You see the old habit of clinging, and you don't have to follow. This is not indifference. It is freedom. The Buddha never promised a life without difficulty. He offered something more reliable, a way to meet difficulty without losing yourself. That way is built quietly, moment by moment, through noticing exhaustion instead of judging it, through understanding the chain instead of fighting it, through choosing silence when words would only wound, through returning to the breath when the mind wants to run, through dedicating peace so it does not fade. None of these steps are heroic. They are human, and that is why they work. You may remember the old version of yourself, the one who replayed conversations late at night, who carried tension into sleep, who woke up already braced for the day. That version was not broken. That version was doing the best it could without a map. Now you have one, not a rigid set of rules, but a living path that meets you where you are. Some days you will walk it steadily. Some days you will stumble. Some days you will forget it entirely. And still it remains. Because the path is not something you hold in your head. It is something your body is learning slowly and kindly. In American Buddhist communities, teachers often say that awakening does not arrive as a lightning strike. It arrives as familiarity, as a growing sense that you know what to do when things get hard. That knowing is beginning to take root in you. You may notice how relationships shift, not because others change, but because you do. Conversations feel shorter. Conflict has less oxygen. You stop explaining yourself into exhaustion. And when you do speak, your words land differently. They come from a place that is not asking for approval. They come from steadiness. They come from care without clinging. This is the fruit of practice, not perfection, not control, but confidence without aggression. There is a gentle dignity in this way of living, a dignity that does not need to announce itself. It shows up in how you listen, in how you pause, in how you leave a room without taking its tension with you. You might notice it in small, unexpected moments. Standing in line, your jaw relaxed, driving your hands light on the wheel. At home, your presence quieter, warmer. These are signs that the mind has learned something new. The Buddha compared this kind of transformation to training a wild horse, not by force, but by patience, consistency, and trust. Over time, the horse no longer needs the reins pulled tight. It responds to subtle guidance. Your mind is learning in the same way. Each time you pause, you teach it safety. Each time you choose awareness, you teach it trust. Each time you let go, you teach it ease. And ease is not laziness. It is alignment. As you move forward, you will still encounter moments that test you. That is part of being alive, but you will meet them differently now. You will remember that you are allowed to rest. You will remember that silence can protect what matters. You will remember that 3 minutes can change the direction of a day. You will remember that peace grows when it is shared, not clenched. And when you forget, because everyone does, you will remember how to return. Return to the breath. Return to sound. Return to seeing clearly. That is the path. Simple, repeatable, kind. If this reflection has touched something in you, let it continue beyond this moment. Carry it into your next conversation, your next quiet evening, your next moment of tension. You might choose to sit for a few breaths tonight. You might whisper a familiar phrase. You might simply place a hand over your heart and acknowledge what you've learned. There is no right way, only sincerity. If you feel moved to share this with someone who has been struggling, do so gently. Not to convince, not to fix, just to offer a light. And if you wish to stay connected, to keep walking this path together through future reflections, you are welcome here. Return whenever you need a reminder. May the understanding you've touched tonight settle into your days. May it protect your heart when words are sharp. May it soften your nights and steady your mornings. May it help you meet life without losing yourself. You are not here to be unshakable. You are here to be awake. And that quietly, steadily is enough.